The banker's pen scratched across the marriage certificate like a predator marking territory. 3 months later, Catherine Mercer would stand in that same courthouse holding evidence that could destroy Colorado's most powerful man, or send her to prison for life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all started, a summer day in 1887, when a desperate rancher and a disgraced schoolteacher were forced into a marriage neither wanted, and a banker made the fatal mistake of underestimating them both. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your location in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're already hooked, hit that like button and subscribe, because this journey of survival, courage, and unexpected love is just beginning. The courthouse smelled of old wood and broken dreams. Nathaniel Brennan stood before Judge Warren Hayes, his Sunday coat brushed clean but unable to hide the hay dust still clinging to his collar. His jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Beside him, Catherine Mercer gripped a bouquet of wildflowers someone had picked that morning, already wilting in the Colorado heat, much like any hope either of them had carried into this room. The judge's voice droned through vows neither of them had written. "Do you, Nathaniel James Brennan, take this woman?" Nate heard himself say, "I do," from somewhere distant. The words tasting like ash. When Hayes turned to Kate, she didn't hesitate. "I do. Not I will. Not I love. Just the minimum required to make the trap legal. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Silence. Not a single person applauded. The courthouse was packed. Farmers Nate had traded with, women who'd shunned Kate, merchants who owed favors to the man sitting in the front row with satisfaction radiating from him like heat from a stove, Victor Blackwell. The banker who'd orchestrated this public humiliation sat with his expensive suit and calculating smile, watching two lives get shackled together for his entertainment. Nate turned to Kate, his wife. This stranger he'd sworn his life to, and saw the same trapped recognition in her eyes. This wasn't a wedding, this was an execution dressed in lace. 2 weeks earlier, the knock came at dawn, early enough to catch a man before his guard was up. Nate had been in the barn forking hay to the horses, his 7-year-old daughter Emma still asleep in the house. He heard boots on gravel and knew, the way prey knows when a predator circles close, that his time had run out. Victor Blackwell didn't believe in the courtesy of small talk. "I'm calling the loan, Brennan." The banker stood in the barn doorway, blocking the early light. "You've got 30 days to settle accounts or I'm filing foreclosure papers. The land, the house, the livestock, all of it goes to auction." Nate drove the pitchfork into the hay bale harder than necessary. "We had an agreement. 18 months to make payments, market conditions change." Victor pulled a folded document from his jacket. "I've got buyers interested in this property right now. Cash buyers. You understand business, don't you?" "I understand you're changing terms because you can. I'm protecting my investment." Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "However, I'm not an unreasonable man. There is one way you keep this land." Nate's stomach turned to lead. "There's a woman," Victor continued. "Catherine Mercer. You know her." Everyone knew Kate Mercer. Former schoolteacher, 28 years old and unmarried, a scandalous age in a town that measured a woman's worth by her wedding ring. She'd taught at Ashford School for 6 years until last spring when the board dismissed her for unsuitable modern ideas. The real reason, Nate suspected, had nothing to do with her teaching. What about her? "She needs a husband. You need your debt forgiven." Victor laid a paper on the hay bale, a marriage contract, already drafted. "Marry Catherine Mercer within the week, and I'll clear your accounts. Simple business transaction, why?" Nate stared at the document like it was a rattlesnake coiled in the straw. "Why does it matter to you who she marries?" Victor's expression hardened. "Miss Mercer rejected a very reasonable proposal from my nephew Charles. Publicly. Embarrassed the boy in front of half the county. That kind of disrespect requires correction." There it was. Not business at all. Revenge dressed in contract language. "You're punishing her, I'm offering her security. A home, a husband, a child to care for." Victor adjusted his cufflinks. Most spinsters would weep with gratitude. And I'm offering you your land. Unless your pride is worth more than your daughter's inheritance. The mention of Emma hit like a fist to the gut. His little girl, barely 7 years old, already motherless after Sarah died 2 years ago. What would she be if she was landless, too? A rancher's daughter with no ranch. A legacy that evaporated because her father was too stubborn to bend. Miss Mercer agreed to this. Miss Mercer is a practical woman. She understands her options are limited. Victor headed toward the door, then paused. You've got until Friday to decide. After that, I file the papers. Think about what matters, Brennan. A man's pride or a man's legacy. The buggy rolled away in a cloud of dust, leaving Nate standing in the barn with a contract that felt like a noose. He found Kate 3 days later at the mercantile. She stood at the fabric counter examining calico with the focused intensity of someone who couldn't afford mistakes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, her dress simple gray cotton that had been altered and re-altered until the seams showed ghosts of better days. She'd been beautiful once. Probably still was, under the armor of resignation she wore. Miss Mercer, she turned, unsurprised. Mr. Brennan, the clerk suddenly discovered urgent business in the stock room. We should talk, Nate said, about the contract Victor Blackwell put in front of you? Or about how quickly desperation makes strangers into spouses? Kate's voice was level, educated, with an edge sharp enough to draw blood. I assume you're here to negotiate terms. I'm here because I don't force women into anything. How noble. She set the fabric down carefully. And yet here you stand, trying to decide if marrying a disgraced schoolteacher is worth keeping your ranch. Don't pretend this is about my welfare, Mr. Brennan. We both know what this is. What is it, then? Punishment. For you, for me, wrapped up in legal language so it looks respectable. Kate met his eyes directly, unusual for a woman in her position, powerful in its defiance. Victor wants me humiliated. Dependent on a man who doesn't want me, living as a charity case in a house where I'll never belong. He wants everyone to watch the old maid be grateful for scraps. She paused, jaw tight. And he wants you broken. Forced to choose between your land and your dignity. Married to a woman the whole town pities, burdened with my reputation. We're both trophies in his collection, Mr. Brennan. Don't mistake this for anything else. Nate had expected tears, maybe anger. Not this crystalline clarity. This refusal to pretend. What do you want? He asked quietly. Want? Kate's laugh was bitter and brief. I want my teaching position back. I want my reputation intact. I want choices that aren't between humiliation and destitution. She picked up the fabric again, fingers tracing the pattern. But we don't get what we want. We get what we can survive. They stood in silence, two people cornered by the same predator. Finally, Kate spoke. If we do this, and I'm not saying we should, there would be conditions. Name them. I keep my books. I don't care if you think reading is above a woman's station. Those books are mine. She counted on her fingers. I'm not a servant. I'll manage the household because that's practical, not because you own me. Your daughter deserves respect. I won't tolerate being positioned as her dead mother's replacement. And whatever this marriage is legally, it's a business arrangement. Nothing more. Nate absorbed this. My condition, you don't hurt Emma. She's been through enough. If this falls apart, it can't touch her. Agreed. Kate extended her hand. A man's gesture. A contract sealed. Her hand was cold despite the summer heat. Nate shook it once, firm and brief. Feeling like he'd just signed something more binding than any legal papers would be. Friday, then, he said. Victor will want witnesses. He'll want the whole town watching. Kate's smile was sharp. Make sure everyone sees us broken to harness. Then we better not give him the satisfaction of seeing us flinch. Friday arrived with cloudless skies and heat that sent dogs sprawling in shade. Judge Hayes presided with the enthusiasm of a man conducting a tax audit. Kate wore a borrowed dress, pale blue, too loose in the shoulders, and carried wildflowers someone had picked that morning. Nate wore his Sunday coat and stood like he was facing a firing squad, the courthouse packed with spectators hungry for every detail they could dissect over supper tables for weeks. Victor Blackwell in the front row, satisfaction radiating. When Hayes finished the ceremony, the silence was thick enough to choke on. The contract signing happened in Hayes's chambers. Victor produced debt forgiveness papers with theatrical flourish. Nate signed, his handwriting tight with controlled fury. Kate's signature came next, Catherine Mercer Brennan, her maiden name legally erased. "Congratulations," Victor said, and the word was poison. "I'm sure you'll be very happy together." Outside, summer heat hit like walking into a furnace. Nate helped Kate into his wagon, the first time he'd touched her beyond the handshake. Her waist was smaller than he'd expected under the loose dress. Her body stiff with awareness of being observed. "They're all watching," she murmured. "Let them." He climbed up beside her and drove them out of town as man and wife. Behind them, Ashford buzzed with judgment. Ahead, the road to the ranch stretched empty under the brutal sun. Neither spoke for 3 miles. Finally, Kate broke the silence. "Your daughter. Emma. Does she know? I told her we needed help at the house. That you'd be staying with us, staying with you. Not that we're married." Nate's hands tightened on the reins. "She's 7. I didn't know how to explain that her father just bought a wife to keep the land, so I'm the hired help in her eyes. He stopped. Unsure how to finish. "She lost her mother 2 years ago. I'm trying to protect her from more pain." Kate was quiet. "Then, children aren't as fragile as we think. They understand more than we give them credit for. You taught for 6 years. That make you an expert on my daughter." The words came out harsher than intended. Kate flinched, barely, but he saw it. "No," she said softly. "It makes me someone who's watched children suffer through their parents' secrets and lies. But you're her father. You know best." The edge of sarcasm was faint. Almost invisible, almost. They drove the rest of the way in silence. The ranch house sat in a valley basin, surrounded by pine-covered slopes. 2 stories, solid timber construction, built to last. The barn stood 50 yards off, and beyond that, pasture rolled toward mountains. It should have been welcoming. Instead, it felt like a prison they were both being delivered to. Nate pulled the wagon to a stop. Before he could help her down, Kate climbed off herself, gathering her skirts with practiced efficiency. "It's a good property," she said finally. "Worth a forced marriage, you think?" Kate didn't answer. The front door banged open. Emma appeared, wild blonde curls, dirt-smudged cheeks. She stopped short when she saw Kate, curiosity and caution warring on her small face. "Emma," Nate said. "This is Miss Mercer. She's going to be helping around the house." Kate crouched down, bringing herself to the child's eye level. "Hello, Emma. Your father's told me about you." Emma studied her with 7-year-old brutal honesty. "Are you the teacher everyone says is mean?" "Emma, it's all right." Kate's smile was small but genuine. "I was a teacher, yes. Some people thought I was mean because I made them think hard. Thinking can feel mean sometimes when you're not used to it." "I like thinking," Emma said. "Papa says I think too much. I don't believe there's such a thing as thinking too much. Only people who are afraid of what you might figure out." Emma's face lit up, that flash of recognition when a child finds an adult who speaks their language. "I have books." "Do you like books?" "I love books." "Do you know about horses?" "Papa lets me help, but he says I'm too small to ride alone. I used to ride when I was your age." "Maybe smaller, really?" Emma grabbed Kate's hand with the unconscious trust of the young. "Can you show me?" "Papa, can she show me?" Nate watched his daughter, reserved, cautious Emma who'd barely spoken to strangers since Sarah died, chatter at Kate like they were old friends. Something in his chest twisted painfully. let Miss Mercer settle in first, he said. Catherine, Kate corrected gently, still crouched beside Emma. If it's all right with your father, you can call me Catherine. Emma looked up at Nate. Hope bright on her face, he found himself nodding, not sure what he was agreeing to. That first evening, Kate cooked supper. She moved through the kitchen with quiet efficiency, finding supplies, creating a meal from what little the house offered. The food was simple, fried potatoes, bacon, biscuits from scratch, but it was hot, properly seasoned, more than the basic sustenance Nate usually managed. They ate in near silence. These are good biscuits, Emma announced. Better than Papa's. Your Papa's biscuits are fine, I'm sure, Kate said diplomatically. They're rocks. He burns them. Nate felt his face heat. I'm better with horses than ovens, most people are. Kate's lips quirked. Not quite a smile, but close. I'm better with ovens than horses, so we're even. After supper, Emma disappeared to do chores. Nate stood to help clear dishes, but Kate waved him off. I've got this. You must have work, he did. There was always work on a ranch. But something made him stay, leaning against the doorframe, watching her move through his kitchen like she was learning a new language. You didn't have to compliment my biscuits, he said. I didn't. I complimented your daughter's honesty. She pumped water into the basin. And she was right. They were rocks, despite everything. Nate almost smiled. My wife used to make them, he said, then froze. The word wife applied to Kate felt like betrayal to Sarah's memory. Kate's hand stilled in the dishwater. I'm not trying to replace her, I know, do you? She turned to face him. Because Emma thinks I'm the help. You introduce me as Miss Mercer. And you look at me like I'm a ghost haunting your wife's house. Her voice was steady, but he heard the hurt underneath. I know this marriage is legal fiction, Nathaniel. But if we're going to survive it, you need to decide what I actually am here. Because I can't be nothing. I can't be invisible. The truth hit him hard. She'd lost her job, her reputation, her name. Been forced into marriage with a stranger who couldn't even call her wife without flinching. Was expected to live in another woman's shadow. Grateful for the privilege of being pitted. You're right, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Kate blinked, surprised. For what? For acting like you're the problem when Victor's the one who put us both in this cage. Nate straightened. You want to know what you are? You're my wife. Legally, officially, in front of the whole county. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. Something shifted in Kate's expression. Suspicion giving way to cautious hope. You mean that? I mean it. We didn't choose this, but we're in it. And I won't have you feeling like you're trespassing in your own home. For a long moment, Kate just stared at him, then she nodded slowly. All right. Thank you. She turned back to the dishes, but the tension in her shoulders had eased. That night, Kate found sleep impossible. She sat at the small desk in her room, the marriage contract spread before her by lamplight. She'd read it a dozen times already, but something nagged at her, a lawyer's instinct from watching her father negotiate merchant deals years ago. Her finger traced down the dense legal language, then stopped, there, hidden in a paragraph of standard clauses, a line she'd missed during the rushed signing. In the event of death or dissolution of marriage within 12 months of contract execution, all properties held by the primary debtor shall revert to the creditor in full. Satisfaction of any and all claims. Kate's blood went cold. If Nate died. If they divorced. Within 1 year, Victor would take everything. This wasn't debt forgiveness. This was a trap with a timer. Victor hadn't freed them from anything. He'd bound them tighter, ensuring they were stuck together for at least a year, unable to escape each other, unable to escape him. If their marriage fell apart, Victor won. If something happened to Nate, Victor won. They were prisoners, and she'd just discovered the walls went deeper than either of them knew. Kate pressed her fist to her mouth, fighting back the panic rising in her throat. Tomorrow, she'd have to tell Nate. Tomorrow, they'd have to decide what to do about a cage they hadn't even known they were in. But tonight, she sat alone in the darkness, watching moonlight track across the floor, and wondered if either of them would survive what Victor Blackwell had really done. Morning came too quickly. Kate found Nate in the barn, already at work despite the early hour. He looked up as she entered, saw something in her face, and set down the hay fork immediately. What happened? She handed him the contract without speaking. Nate read where her finger pointed. Read it again. His jaw muscles worked. The only sign of the rage she knew was building underneath. He never intended to free us, Kate said quietly. The marriage didn't forgive anything. It just changed the terms. We're stuck together for a year. Or he takes everything. Son of a... Nate threw the contract down. If I'd known, you'd have done exactly what you did. There was no other choice. Kate wrapped her arms around herself. But now we know. Whatever we do next, we do it knowing Victor's still holding the leash. Nate was quiet for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then, we need help. Ruth Larson arrived that afternoon. The older woman lived 3 miles north, a widow who kept mostly to herself. She was one of the few people in Ashford who'd shown Kate any kindness after the dismissal. Ruth set a basket of bread on the kitchen table and got straight to business. I heard about the wedding. Came to see if you needed anything. Her eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Or if you needed to know things. Kate asked carefully, about Victor Blackwell. Ruth pulled out a chair, sitting with the air of someone who'd made a decision. 10 years ago, my husband took a loan from Victor's bank. When John couldn't pay, times were hard, cattle prices dropped, Victor called the loan early. Foreclosed. We lost everything. She paused. 3 days after the auction, John walked into the barn and hanged himself. Kate felt the air leave her lungs. I'm so sorry, Nate said. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Ruth's voice was steel wrapped in sorrow. Victor Blackwell destroys people. It's what he does. But he makes one mistake. He thinks everyone he breaks stays broken. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small tin box, dented and old. I've spent 10 years collecting this. Every contract, every letter, every lie Victor's told. Every family he's ruined. Ruth set the box down like it was sacred. My husband's gone. But if I can help stop Victor from killing anyone else's husband, wife, or hope, then maybe John's death means something. Kate stared at the box. Why now? Why help us? Ruth's eyes softened. Because you tried to help me, 10 years ago. You were just a new teacher then, barely 20. When John died, you came to the house. Brought food, offered to tutor my children for free, told me I was strong enough to survive this. Kate barely remembered. She'd been so young, so naive. I was too proud to accept help then, Ruth continued. Too ashamed. I sent you away. She reached across the table, gripping Kate's hand. I won't make that mistake twice. You need an ally. You have one. 3 days later, the letter arrived. Nate found it at the general store, tucked between invoices. His name in Victor's distinctive handwriting. He opened it standing at the counter, aware of the clerk watching. The words hit like a physical blow. Mr. Brennan, this is formal notice that upon review of your financial obligations and marital status, your loan repayment has been restructured. New balance due, $8,470. Payment required within 14 days to avoid foreclosure proceedings. Regards, V. Blackwell, First Bank of Ashford. Nate read it twice, his vision tunneling. $8,000. 14 days, impossible. He rode home in silence, the letter burning in his pocket. Kate took one look at his face and knew. He handed her the letter without speaking. She read it. Then read it again. Her expression shifted from confusion to understanding to cold, precise rage. He never stopped, she said quietly. The marriage was just theater. He was always going to do this. Can he legally? I don't know. But it doesn't matter what's legal if we can't fight it. Kate paced the kitchen, mind clearly working through possibilities. Unless, she stopped. Unless what? The original contract. The loan agreement Victor gave you. Do you still have it? Nate pulled it from his desk. Kate spread both documents side by side on the kitchen table, her finger tracing lines of text, comparing clauses, then she stopped. Went very still. Nate. Look at this, she pointed to a section in the original loan agreement. Any material change to repayment schedule requires 30 days written notice and formal property appraisal to establish current collateral value. Then to Victor's letter, dated only 2 weeks after their wedding. He didn't give 30 days notice, Kate breathed. And I guarantee he hasn't done any formal appraisal. Meaning he violated the contract terms. This restructuring is void. Kate looked up, something fierce and bright in her eyes. We can fight this. We can take him to court. Nate wanted to believe her. But the weight of reality pressed down. Victor owns half this town. He's got connections to the territorial governor. Fighting him isn't just difficult, it's dangerous. More dangerous than losing everything, more dangerous than what he'll do to you if we push back. You think he's going to let this go quietly? Nate moved closer. Kate, if we challenge him, he'll come after us with everything he has. Your reputation, your past, anything he can use as a weapon. Kate's face went pale, but her jaw set. I know, you know. Do you understand what that means? He'll dig into your life, drag out every secret, make sure the whole territory knows. I understand perfectly. Her voice was steady despite the fear in her eyes. And I'm telling you we fight anyway. They stood facing each other in the kitchen, the marriage that started as a cage now binding them in a different way. Finally, Nate said, if we do this, we do it together. All the way. No matter what he throws at us, together, Kate agreed. They took their case to Judge Warren Hayes 2 days later. The judge listened without interrupting as Kate laid out their evidence, the original contract. The violation of notice requirements, the impossibility of the new demand. When she finished, Hayes sat back in his chair, fingers steepled. You understand what you're asking me to do here? His voice was careful. Victor Blackwell is one of the most powerful men in Colorado. Challenging him isn't just legally complex, it's dangerous, we understand, Nate said. But the law is supposed to apply equally, regardless of power or wealth. Isn't that what you told us when you presided at our wedding? Hayes's expression flickered, guilt, perhaps, or regret. He'd known what that wedding really was. Everyone had known. I'll need to review the evidence thoroughly, he said finally. But if what you're claiming is accurate, if Victor violated his own contract terms, then yes, I can issue an order requiring him to justify this restructuring. Or withdraw it. How long? Kate asked. Come back in 3 days. 2 o'clock. They spent those 3 days preparing for war. Ruth brought more evidence from her tin box. Other families Victor had destroyed using similar tactics. Kate documented everything, building a case with the precision of someone who taught logic and rhetoric for years. Nate reinforced fences, checked livestock, prepared the ranch for whatever retaliation might come, and Emma, too young to fully understand but old enough to sense the tension, stayed close to Kate. The child had bonded with her new stepmother faster than Nate had imagined possible, following her around the house, helping with chores, reading together in the evenings. One night, after Emma had gone to bed, Nate found Kate on the porch. Can't sleep, he asked. Too much thinking. She glanced at him. Emma asked me today if I was her mother now. Nate's chest tightened. What did you say? I said I'd never try to replace the mother she lost. But if she wanted to call me Mama, I'd be honored. Kate's voice was soft. Was that wrong? No. Nate moved to stand beside her. It was perfect. They stood in silence, watching stars emerge over the mountains. I need to tell you something, Kate said suddenly. Before the hearing. Before Victor has a chance to use it against us, Nate waited. 6 years ago, I was married. The words came out in a rush. Briefly. To a professor at the Teachers College in Boston. He was older, respected. Everyone said I was lucky. She took a shaky breath. He wasn't violent, not with his fists. But he broke things when he was angry. Controlled everything I did, every word I said. Told me I was stupid, worthless, that I should be grateful anyone wanted me. Nate's hands clenched. I left after 3 months. Ran here to Colorado, changed my name slightly. I was Catherine Elizabeth Hartfield then. Started using my mother's maiden name, Mercer. I thought I was free. Her voice cracked. But Victor found out somehow. He used it to threaten me, said if I didn't marry his nephew, he'd expose me as a runaway wife. When I still refused, he got me fired instead. Kate, there's more. She turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. If Victor reveals my past in court, he could claim I committed bigamy. That this marriage is invalid because I was already married. I don't know if my first husband is even alive. We never divorced legally. I just ran. The full weight of what she was risking hit Nate like a falling beam. If the marriage is invalid, he said slowly, then the debt forgiveness is void. And you could face criminal charges, yes, so by fighting Victor, you're risking everything. Not just the ranch. Your freedom, yes. Nate pulled her into his arms, feeling her trembling against him. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. Ruth has connections. She can search records, find out if your husband is alive or dead. If he's dead, there's no bigamy. If he's alive. He pulled back to look at her. Then we prove Victor knew and used it to blackmail you. Either way, you're not going to prison. Kate searched his face. Why are you doing this? You could just let me take the fall. Save yourself, because you're not taking any fall. Nate cupped her face gently. You're my wife, Kate. That might have started as a lie, but it's the truth now. And I protect what's mine. Something shifted in her expression, hope, fragile and new. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to trust someone. How to let someone protect me, neither do I. I've been alone so long, I forgot what it felt like to have a partner. Nate's thumb brushed her cheek. But we'll figure it out. Together. Kate rose on her toes and kissed him, gentle, questioning. When Nate kissed her back, it felt like making a promise neither of them had words for yet. The night before the hearing, Ruth returned with news. I found him. She set papers on the kitchen table. Professor Edmund Hartfield. Boston. He died 4 years ago, influenza epidemic. Kate's knees buckled. Nate caught her, held her upright. You're sure? Kate's voice was barely audible. Death certificate, obituary, burial record. Ruth's smile was grim. You're a widow, Catherine. Not a runaway wife. You've done nothing wrong. The relief that crashed through Kate was so intense she started shaking. Nate guided her to a chair, knelt beside her. It's over, he said. That part, at least. Victor can't touch you with this, but Kate was already thinking ahead. He'll try something else. Some other weapon, let him try. Ruth's voice was steel. I've got weapons of my own. They arrived at the courthouse at 2 o'clock to find it packed. Word had spread. The entire town seemed to have turned out, some curious, some supportive, many just hungry for spectacle. Victor sat in the front row with 2 lawyers from Denver, expensive suits and predatory smiles. Judge Hayes called the hearing to order. Mr. Blackwell, Mrs. and Mr. Brennan. We're here to address the complaint filed regarding improper loan modification. Mr. Blackwell, you may present your justification. Victor's lead lawyer stood smoothly. Your Honor, The modification was necessitated by Mr. Brennan's change in marital status, which constitutes a material change in circumstances per Contract Clause 7b. The new payment schedule reflects adjusted risk assessment, and the required 30-day notice. Kate interjected before Hayes could respond. The contract is explicit. Any modification requires 30 days written notice and formal property appraisal. Mr. Blackwell provided neither. The notice period is a guideline, not an absolute. It's not a guideline. Kate pulled out the contract, voice ringing clear. It says requires, not suggests. And where is the formal appraisal, Mr. Blackwell? Because you claimed the modification was based on property value assessment. Show us the appraisal. Victor's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. The appraisal is being processed. So it doesn't exist. Kate stepped forward. You sent a modification demand without the required notice, without the required appraisal, in direct violation of your own contract. That's not risk assessment, Mr. Blackwell. That's fraud. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Hayes banged his gavel. Order. Mr. Blackwell, do you have documentation of this appraisal? A long pause. Then Victor stood, abandoning the pretense of letting his lawyers handle it. Your Honor, what I have is a broader concern. One that affects the legitimacy of this entire proceeding. He turned to face Kate directly. Mrs. Brennan, if that's even your legal name, has been less than forthcoming about her past. Nate's hands clenched. This was it. 6 years ago, Victor continued, Catherine Mercer was Catherine Hartfield, married to Professor Edmund Hartfield in Boston. She abandoned that marriage without legal dissolution. Which means her current marriage to Mr. Brennan is invalid, bigamy, in fact. And if the marriage is invalid, so is any debt forgiveness attached to it. The courtroom exploded. Hayes banged his gavel repeatedly. Order. Order. Kate stood frozen, face drained of color. Then Ruth Larson rose from the back of the room. Your Honor, may I speak? Hayes looked startled, but nodded. Ruth walked forward with slow, deliberate steps, pulling papers from her bag. Mr. Blackwell is correct that Catherine Hartfield married Edmund Hartfield 6 years ago. What he neglected to mention, perhaps because he didn't know, or perhaps because it didn't suit his narrative, is that Edmund Hartfield died 4 years ago. She laid the death certificate on the judge's bench. Mrs. Brennan is a widow. Not a bigamist. Her marriage to Nathaniel Brennan is entirely legal. The courtroom went silent. Victor's face darkened. That's, where did you get, public records, Mr. Blackwell? Available to anyone who bothers to look. Ruth's voice carried to every corner of the room. But there's more you should know. More this town should know. She pulled out her tin box. 10 years ago, Victor Blackwell foreclosed on my husband's ranch using the same tactics he's using now, calling loans early, changing terms without notice, manufacturing crises to seize property. My husband couldn't survive the shame. He hanged himself 3 days after we lost everything. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I've spent 10 years documenting Victor's business practices. I have records of 12 other families he's destroyed the same way. Fabricated modifications, improper foreclosures, intimidation, blackmail. Ruth's hands trembled slightly as she opened the box, revealing stacks of papers. I've been waiting for the right moment to bring this evidence forward. For someone brave enough to stand up to him publicly. The Brennans gave me that moment. Hayes took the box, began leafing through documents. His expression grew graver with each page. Victor stood abruptly. This is absurd. A vindictive widow's fantasy, then explain this. Ruth pulled out one more paper. A letter from you to my husband, dated 2 days before his death. You wrote, some men aren't strong enough to survive their failures. Perhaps your family would be better served by your absence. My husband kept it. I found it after he died. The courtroom was utterly silent now. Hayes looked up from the documents, his face like thunder. Mr. Blackwell. I've seen enough." His voice cut through the room. The evidence presented demonstrates a clear pattern of contract violations, predatory lending, and what appears to be systematic fraud. I'm ruling the loan modification invalid. Furthermore, based on the marriage contract language, which explicitly states debts are forgiven upon completion of marriage ceremony, I'm ruling that Mr. Brennan's original debt was satisfied the moment I pronounced him and Mrs. Brennan married. Everything you've done since then, Mr. Blackwell, has been an illegal attempt to collect a debt that no longer exists. Victor's face went white, then red. You can't, I can, and I am. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into your banking practices. And Mr. Blackwell? Hayes's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. If you make any attempt to retaliate against the Brennans, Ruth Larson, or any other person in this courtroom, I will personally ensure you face criminal charges. Are we clear? For the first time since Nate had known him, Victor Blackwell looked uncertain. Looked beaten. This isn't over, Victor said, but the words lacked conviction. Yes, Kate said clearly, it is. They left the courthouse into afternoon sunshine that felt too bright, too normal for the battle just fought. People lingered on the steps, some apologizing, some still keeping distance, but watching with new expressions. Respect. Maybe even admiration. Ruth hugged Kate fiercely. You were magnificent, you saved us, Kate said, voice thick. That evidence, those records, were only valuable because you had the courage to use them. Most people would have stayed quiet, taken the loss, accepted that men like Victor always win. Ruth pulled back, gripping Kate's shoulders. You showed this town something different. Thank you. As they walked to the wagon, Nate felt lighter than he had in months. The debt was gone. Really gone. The ranch was theirs, free and clear, but as they pulled away from town, Kate was quiet. Too quiet. What's wrong? Nate asked. It's not over. Kate's voice was tight. Victor won't accept this. Men like him don't lose gracefully. Hayes warned him. Hayes isn't watching him every minute. And Victor has resources, connections, people who owe him favors. She turned to face Nate. We need to be ready for retaliation. She was right. Of course she was right. The first attack came that night. Nate woke to the smell of smoke. He bolted from bed, ran to the window. The barn, Jesus, the barn was on fire, flames licking up one wall. Kate. He pounded on her door. Fire. They ran outside together. Kate grabbed buckets while Nate sprinted to the barn, threw open the doors. The horses screamed, terrified. He got them out one by one, then the milk cow, then checked for Emma's chickens. By the time they had the fire under control, Kate pumping water. Nate throwing buckets, half the barn wall was charred black. They stood in the wreckage as dawn broke, soot-covered and exhausted. Victor, Kate said. Not a question, has to be. Nate surveyed the damage. Reparable, but costly in time and materials. And more importantly, a message. I can reach you. I can hurt you, we tell Hayes, Kate said. File a complaint. We can't prove it was Victor, then we make sure he can't do it again. Kate's jaw set. We get help. We prepare for worse. Ruth arrived by noon with 4 men. Ranch hands from Henry Caldwell spread 30 miles north. Henry owes Victor nothing but hatred, Ruth explained. He's sending these men to help guard your property until this is settled. No charge. The men were weathered, competent, clearly not intimidated by bankers' threats. They set up a watch rotation immediately. That afternoon, Kate spent hours with Ruth and the legal documents, looking for more ammunition. Nate found them in the kitchen at sunset, papers spread across every surface. Find anything? He asked. Kate looked up, eyes bright with exhaustion and something else. We might have. Look at this, the marriage contract clause. All outstanding debts are hereby forgiven upon completion of marriage ceremony. Not upon approval. Not conditionally. Upon completion, we already know that, yes, but look at when Victor sent his modification demand. August 5th. 2 weeks after our wedding. Kate pulled out Victor's letter. He was attempting to collect on a debt that had already been legally satisfied. That's not a contract dispute anymore, Nate. That's fraud. Criminal fraud, Ruth nodded. If we can prove Victor knew the debt was satisfied and still tried to collect, he's not just facing civil penalties. He's facing prison. Nate absorbed this. Can we prove he knew? He wrote the marriage contract, Kate said. He included that specific clause. There's no way he didn't know what it meant. Then we take this back to Hayes tomorrow. Not as a civil complaint, as a criminal one, but the next morning brought a different kind of attack. Nate rode into town for supplies and found the general store closed. Not just to him, shuttered completely. A hastily written sign, closed for inventory. He tried the feed store, the blacksmith, the mercantile. Every business owner suddenly had urgent reasons not to serve him. Tom Fletcher at the hardware store at least had the decency to look ashamed. I'm sorry, Nate. Victor's called in debts all over town. Anyone who does business with you faces foreclosure. He can't do that. Hayes ruled against him. Hayes ruled on your case. Doesn't stop Victor from calling other people's loans. Fletcher glanced over his shoulder nervously. He owns this town, Nate. Most of us are one bad season away from losing everything. We can't risk helping you. Nate rode home empty-handed, fury building with each mile. He found Kate in the kitchen with Emma, teaching her mathematics. The domesticity of it, the normalcy, made the injustice burn hotter. Victor's cut off our supplies, he said. Threatened everyone who might trade with us. Kate's expression hardened. Then we go around him. There are other towns. Blackstone, Sterling, even Denver if we have to. That's days of travel. Expensive, cheaper than starving. And it proves we won't be intimidated. Emma looked between them, clearly sensing the tension but trying to understand. Are we in trouble, Papa? Nate knelt beside his daughter. We're fighting someone who's trying to hurt us. But we're going to be okay, because you and Mama Kate are smart. The casual way Emma said Mama Kate hit Nate unexpectedly. When had that started? Kate met his eyes over Emma's head, something soft and vulnerable in her expression. Because we're smart, Nate agreed. And because we're not giving up. They spent the next week preparing a new legal filing, this time with criminal fraud charges. Ruth continued gathering evidence. The ranch hands Henry sent kept watch, and slowly, quietly, something shifted between Nate and Kate. They fell into rhythms. Kate would wake before dawn to start coffee. Nate would be in from the barn by the time it was ready. They'd sit on the porch in the early light. Not always talking, just present. Together, Emma blossomed under Kate's attention. The girl was reading at levels far beyond her age, asking questions that made both adults stop and think. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Kate found Nate on the porch. Can't sleep, she asked, too much thinking. He glanced at her. You, same. She sat beside him, close enough their shoulders touched. Nate, I need to tell you something. All right, when we got married, I thought I could keep this separate. Keep you at arm's length. Protect myself. Kate's voice was quiet. But I can't. I tried, and I can't. Nate's heart picked up speed. Kate, I love you. The words came out in a rush. I know it's only been weeks. I know this started as a transaction. But somewhere between fighting Victor and raising Emma and sitting here in the dark with you, I fell in love. And I'm terrified that scares you. Nate turned to face her fully, taking her hands. The night Sarah died, he said slowly, I swore I'd never let anyone that close again. It hurt too much to lose her. I convinced myself I was protecting Emma by staying alone. Protecting myself. He squeezed Kate's hands. But you came into our lives and reminded me what I'd forgotten, that living scared isn't really living at all. Nate, I love you, Kate. I should have said it sooner. You're brave and brilliant and you make me want to be better than I am. He pulled her closer. This might have started wrong, but it's right now. More right than anything I've felt in years. Kate's eyes filled with tears. Even though Victor forced us together, especially because of that. He tried to destroy us both and ended up giving us each other instead. Nate kissed her forehead, then her cheeks, then her mouth. Best mistake that bastard ever made. Kate laughed through tears, and kissed him back. 3 days later, they returned to Judge Hayes with their new evidence. This time, Hayes didn't make them wait. He reviewed the documents, called in a territorial marshal, and issued an arrest warrant within the hour. Victor Blackwell was taken into custody that evening on charges of fraud, extortion, and criminal intimidation. The trial lasted 2 weeks, Ruth testified. Other victims came forward, families Victor had destroyed over the years. The evidence was overwhelming. Victor's lawyers tried every tactic, but the facts were undeniable. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Victor was sentenced to 5 years in territorial prison and ordered to make restitution to every family he defrauded. When the verdict was read, Nate felt Kate grip his hand so tight her nails dug into his palm. Emma, sitting between them, looked up with solemn eyes. "We won," she whispered. "We won," Kate confirmed. 6 weeks after the trial, they held a second wedding. This one in Ruth's garden, with people who actually cared about them in attendance. Emma as flower girl, radiating importance in her new dress. Ruth and Henry Caldwell as witnesses. Judge Hayes presiding, this time with genuine warmth. Kate wore a dress she and Ruth had made together, simple white cotton with lace at the collar. Nate wore his Sunday suit, cleaned and pressed until it looked almost new. When it came time for vows, they spoke words they'd written themselves. "I promise to see you," Nate said, holding Kate's hands. "Not as an obligation or a burden, but as the remarkable woman you are. I promise to stand beside you, not in front of you. To value your mind as much as your heart. To build with you instead of for you. And to love you not despite our difficult beginning, but because of it, because it taught us what we're capable of when we refuse to break." Kate's voice shook but held steady. "I promise to be your partner in all things. To fight beside you when fighting is necessary, and to rest with you when peace is possible. I promise to love Emma as my own. To honor the memory of the wife who came before me without living in her shadow. And I promise to choose you every day, for as long as I draw a breath." Judge Hayes smiled. "By the power vested in me, and this time, with genuine joy, I pronounce you husband and wife." Again. Properly, the kiss they shared was met with real applause. Emma cheered loudest of all. The celebration afterward was simple: food from Ruth's kitchen, music from a neighbor's fiddle, dancing in the garden under late autumn sunlight. Nate waltzed Kate around the lawn with more enthusiasm than skill, both of them laughing. "Happy?" he asked, deliriously. "Surprisingly. Completely." Kate rested her head against his chest. "A few months ago I was a disgraced teacher with no future. Now I'm a rancher's wife with more happiness than I know what to do with. You could teach again, if you wanted. Start a school on the ranch." Kate pulled back to look at him. "You'd support that?" "I married a dangerous woman on purpose the second time. Clearly I enjoy the risk." Nate grinned. "Besides, Emma needs more than what I can teach her. And I've seen how you light up talking about books and mathematics. Don't give up what you love just because small-minded people tried to take it from you." "I love you," Kate said softly. "I love you too." Before they cut the cake, Ruth approached with a small envelope. "This is for you," she said to Nate. "Sarah gave it to me a month before she died. Made me promise to give it to you when you found someone new to love." Nate's hands trembled as he took it. Kate squeezed his arm. "Do you want privacy?" "No." "Stay," He opened the envelope carefully. Sarah's handwriting covered a single page. My dearest Nate, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you found someone new to love. Good. Don't you dare feel guilty. I need you to know something. What happened to me wasn't your fault. I chose to have another baby. I knew the risks. I chose anyway, because I wanted to give Emma a sibling, and because I still believe, that some things are worth the risk. You're going to blame yourself. You're going to think you should have stopped me, protected me better. But Nate, that would have been taking away my choice. My agency. And I would have resented you for it, so here's what I want you to live. Really live. Find someone who makes you laugh again. Someone who challenges you. Someone Emma can learn from. Fall in love like you mean it, without shadows of me holding you back. Emma deserves to see her father happy. She deserves a mother figure who chooses her, not just someone going through motions of duty. Give her that. Give yourself that, and when you stand at your new wedding, because I know you'll do the whole ceremony properly, know that I'm not haunting you with jealousy. I'm cheering. I'm grateful someone else will love you the way you deserve. Live, Nathaniel. Love Emma. Love your new wife. Be happy, that's all I ever wanted for you, always, Sarah. Nate's vision blurred. Kate's arm slipped around his waist. Holding him steady, Emma appeared at his other side, too young to read the letter but old enough to understand tears. Was that from Mama Sarah? She asked softly. Nate nodded, not trusting his voice. Did she say it's okay? That Mama Kate is here now? Yes, sweetheart. She said it's more than okay. Emma seemed to consider this seriously. Then she took Kate's hand and Nate's, linking them together. Good. Because I love you both, and I'm glad we're a real family now. 3 months later, Kate stood in the kitchen kneading bread while Emma practiced her letters at the table. She'd started teaching again, small classes in the ranch house's largest room, children from neighboring families who'd been starving for quality education. Word had spread quickly. Even some families from town sent their children. Despite lingering discomfort about Kate's past, the ranch was thriving. Nate had hired 2 permanent hands with money from Victor's restitution payments. They'd repaired the barn, upgraded the fencing, even built a new chicken coop. Ruth visited often. She'd become almost like a grandmother to Emma, and a true friend to Kate, and that morning, Kate had confirmed what she'd suspected for weeks. She waited until evening, until Emma was in bed and Nate was on the porch watching sunset. I have news, she said, settling beside him. Good news or bad news, depends on your perspective. She took his hand. Placed it on her still flat stomach. I'm pregnant. Doc Riley confirmed it this afternoon. Due in late spring. Nate went very still, then he turned to her, eyes bright with emotion. You're sure? I'm sure. And you want this? Kate understood what he was really asking. After what happened to Sarah. After all the fear, I want this, she said firmly. I want a child with you. I want Emma to have a sibling. And Nate, she cupped his face. I know you're scared. But we're not Sarah and your past. We're us. And we're going to be fine. Nate pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was precious and fragile and strong all at once. I love you, he said into her hair. God, Kate, I love you so much. I love you too. They sat together as darkness gathered, the ranch breathing peacefully around them. In the house behind them, Emma slept safe and loved. Before them, the land stretched toward mountains that had witnessed their struggle and their triumph. What had begun as the worst kind of coercion, 2 lives bound together as punishment, had become something neither could have imagined, a partnership forged in fire, a love born from fighting side by side, a family built on choice and courage instead of obligation. Victor Blackwell had meant to break them both. Instead, he'd given them each other, and that, Kate thought as Nate's hand settled protectively over where their child grew, was the best revenge of all. 1 year later, the school session ended at 3 o'clock. Children scattered across the ranch yard, some collected by parents, some staying to help with chores in exchange for lessons. Kate stood on the porch, 5-month-old Thomas in her arms, watching Emma teach a younger student how to saddle a horse properly. Nate emerged from the barn, saw them, and smiled, that easy, genuine smile he'd finally learned to wear without guilt. "How was class?" he asked, climbing the steps. "Good. Jenny Miller can read full paragraphs now. And the Caldwell boys are actually understanding fractions. Miracles do happen." Nate kissed her forehead, then Thomas's. "Ruth stopped by. She wanted you to know the territorial legislature is voting on new banking regulations next month. Based partly on the evidence from Victor's trial, really. Limits on foreclosure practices, required notice periods, protections for borrowers." Nate's expression was complicated, pride mixed with lingering anger. "It won't bring back the families Victor destroyed. But it might stop the next Victor." Kate leaned against him, careful of the baby between them. "We did something that mattered. You did something that mattered. I just held on while you fought." "That's not true and you know it." Emma ran up, breathless. "Mama Kate, can Jenny stay for supper? Her pa has to work late and she doesn't want to ride home alone in the dark." "Of course she can." Kate smiled at her stepdaughter. "Set an extra place." "Already did." Emma dashed back inside. Nate shook his head fondly. "She's too smart for her own good. She gets that from you. She gets it from you. The reading, the questions, the way she sees the world, that's all your influence." Kate adjusted Thomas in her arms. "Then she gets her stubbornness from you." "Fair enough." They stood together in the late afternoon light, watching their small piece of the world. The ranch was theirs, truly theirs now, no debt, no threats, no shadows. The school was growing. Emma was thriving. Thomas was healthy. It wasn't perfect. Some people in town still whispered. Money was sometimes tight. The work was endless, but it was theirs. Built by choice. Fought for. Earned. "Thank you," Nate said suddenly. "For what?" "For being brave enough to fight when giving up would have been easier. For loving Emma. For loving me even when I was too stubborn to see what was right in front of me." He kissed her softly. "For turning the worst thing that ever happened to me into the best thing." Kate's eyes filled. "It was the best thing for me too. Even though it started so wrong, especially because it started wrong." Nate's arm tightened around her shoulders. "We chose each other, Kate. Not because we had to. Because we wanted to. That's worth everything we suffered." Inside, Emma was setting the table, chattering to Jenny about books and horses and all the things 7-year-old girls find endlessly fascinating. The ranch spread around them, solid and real and home, and Kate thought, yes. This is worth everything. Sometimes the worst beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. Sometimes love is born from fighting side by side. Sometimes choosing to stay is the bravest thing you can do. And sometimes, just sometimes, two people forced together by cruelty can build something so strong that even the cruelest man in the territory can't tear it down. The ranch was theirs. The future was theirs. And every day that followed would be theirs too. Built on choice, earned through courage, worth the fight. Thank you so much for staying with Nate and Kate through their journey from that humiliating courthouse wedding to the hard-won happiness they found together. Their story reminds us that sometimes the worst circumstances can forge the strongest bonds, and that courage and love can triumph even over the most powerful cruelty. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that fighting back is worth it, that love can grow in the darkest soil, and that choosing each other, really choosing, not just accepting, makes all the difference. Drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it Kate discovering the hidden contract clause? Ruth's courtroom testimony? The letter from Sarah? Or maybe that quiet moment on the porch when Nate and Kate finally admitted they'd fallen in love? And if you want more stories of resilience, courage, and love that defies the odds, Check out the playlist linked in the description. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than the circumstances trying to break you. You're worthy of being chosen. And sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to stay broken. Thank you for being here.